Are foreclosures up or down in Southern California? What effects are the Eaton and Palisades fires having on mortgage payments? Did Elon Musk ever foreclose on Gene Wilder's old house? And what is the foreclosure funnel? We are going to run through this and more in the Southern California Foreclosure Report. Hey there, Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates. We've been helping the smartest buyers and sellers make the best data-driven decisions in this crazy market. Let's take a quick look at the foreclosures in Southern California, and here we're going from January 2025 all the way back to 2015. A lot of data. Now, we get these numbers from ICE. I've mentioned them before. It used to be Black Knight, and it's a respectable place to get data from. But there's a mistake on here. I do not believe that we had 503 notices of default in January of 2020. Now, of course, we had COVID coming, but at that point in time, I don't think we were that upside down. I could be wrong, but as mentioned before, sometimes they are our idiosyncrasies, we'll call it, in the data. But let's look at the general trend. We can believe this general trend. And what we're seeing for notices of default is we're seeing the trend is up. This low area here, that's when we had a foreclosure moratorium. So we were seeing fewer notices of default filed, which is the first public notice, the first stage in the foreclosure process. And we can see that these numbers have increased, but they're very similar to more normal years. Any given year, there's going to be a normal level of foreclosures. People are missing payments. It'll be interesting to see what the effects of the wildfires are, particularly for Los Angeles, if we're going to see a big increase there in people being foreclosed on, or lenders may not start that foreclosure process. So the first we would be able to see any change in the notices of default would be 120 days after January. So it's not going to show up in the data for a little while. This brings in the numbers from 2011. We're already going down in notices of default in 2011. Just give some perspective. Again, don't think this 503 is accurate. Notice of trustee sales, the next phase. So 90 days after the notice of default, this is the quickest it can happen, usually takes longer. We can see the notice of trustee sale filed, and I'll have the actual trustee sale on there. And we're down for Los Angeles. Now, that could be because of the fires. We didn't have the next phase filed. They decided not to file that, but we will have to see if that is also an anomaly itself. Everywhere else, we see a slight increase in the notice of trustee sale, but it's not extremely higher than where we were in those years past. Again, normal levels of foreclosures and nowhere near the crazy days 2011 as far as back as we can get data here. We see huge numbers of notices of trustee sale. Looking at real estate owned. So these are properties that go back to the lender. They're not purchased by a third party at trustee sale, and they're not purchased by someone else through the SB 1079 process. After trustee sale, these ones go back to the bank, and numbers in general are low. We've seen them incredibly low. 2021, when we had a foreclosure moratorium, the numbers were very low. And a lot of investors were purchasing them at trustee sale, even buying them directly before they got to trustee sale. Just not many people being foreclosed on. And looking at a more normal year like 2015, we were still coming out of having a lot of foreclosures, high numbers, almost 200 foreclosures in that month of January in 2015, but nowhere near what we had in 2011. Important to keep this perspective. It's been too long, and we owe you an update on what happened to Willy Wonka's house, or Gene Wilder's house, I should say. If you remember, we were talking about the fact that this home was sold years ago from Elon Musk to a relative of Gene Wilder. Unfortunately, they didn't make payments, so Elon Musk was foreclosing on this property. Well, what happened? If you remember in our last update, there was a notice of trustee sale, and that was scheduled for December 3rd, 2024. So if you showed up with your cashier's checks, you'd be able to buy. Many times these auctions get pushed for various reasons. Well, that's not the case here. So on December 3rd, the auction went ahead as scheduled, and the sale price was $7.587143. So it went back to the lender, who in this case is Elon Musk. The property had been listed on the open market while it was going through the foreclosure sale for $12,950, and they dropped it to $9.5. but it did not sell. It went back to the lender. So that is the latest status. Keep an eye out for it. It will theoretically be coming back to the open market, and you will have your shot at purchasing Gene Wilder's home. Don't even think about selling or buying real estate in SoCal without reaching out to us first. The Mortgage Monitor Report has a great breakdown on the California wildfires. We're going to take a quick look at this. I have a link below so you can download it. You know I have a love-hate relationship. ICE is the same place that I get the data for the reports that we showed you with the number of foreclosures, but they do put together these good reports as well, and this is accurate. So California wildfires broke it down to the Palisades and Eaton area, talking about some of the differences. So in the Palisades, 73% of those single-family homes in that neighborhood, that's not all the ones destroyed, but in that neighborhood, because of the price point, the majority of those mortgages, 80% were portfolio mortgages, which means that Fannie or Freddie wouldn't buy them because they're too big. That is different from the Eaton fire area. About 81% of those properties have a mortgage, not a huge difference there, but 51% of those mortgages are owned by the GSEs, the Fannie and Freddie, and 43% of portfolio. So there's a difference in who is ultimately going to take a hit if those mortgages aren't paid. And speaking of mortgages not being paid, they've broken down to show the payments that are being missed from December of 2024 to January of 2025, bearing in mind that the fires didn't start until January 7th, they mentioned here. So a lot of folks actually paid their mortgage because most of those mortgages, the payment's due by the 10th. So a lot of the folks paid, but we still have about 4.8% in the Eaton wildfire zone that did not pay. And about 4.7% it was down month over month in the Palisades area. So we really aren't going to see the effect of folks not being able to pay their mortgages until we get the numbers for February and beyond. And yes, you still have to pay a mortgage even if the collateral is destroyed in a fire. That's why you're supposed to have insurance to help with that. I know I'm throwing a lot at you in the SoCal Foreclosure Report, but I've been thinking about this and I wanted to take a quick run through the foreclosure funnel. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to dive deeper, but there's an entire spectrum of opportunity when it comes to properties where payments are being missed. And when we run our numbers, we're just looking at a tiny bit of the process when we look at the notices. So just run through this real fast and let me know, like I said, in the comments if you want more. So the biggest group are those who are going to miss a payment, and they may know it or they may not know it. Maybe they're going to lose a job, there's death, divorce, and it could be any one of these payments or all of these payments. The mortgage, property taxes, HOA dues. The property can be foreclosed on or sold at a sale for missing any of these for a long enough time. So mortgage, we won't know for sure if they're behind. Property taxes, we will know in some cases because you can see that from the assessor's office. And HOA dues, they may file a lien if it gets far enough behind. So that next down on the funnel is they've missed a payment, and that starts the clock ticking for the notice of default. And that notice of default can be filed at minimum 120 days after missing a mortgage payment for a first mortgage. That is the first public notice, and that's what we run through in these reports. Then a minimum of 90 days later, we can have the notice of trustee sale. You can see there's fewer and fewer properties getting this far because people can sell their properties. 21 days later will be the trustee sale. Now, what's interesting about the trustee sale, in SB 1079, which is the sale process after foreclosure that's unique in California, we release content on that. These are going to be times where it has to be all cash. You cannot show up with a loan to purchase a trustee sale or after through the SB 1079 process. Any of the properties that are not purchased at trustee sale and make it through the SB 1079 process, they become REOs, real estate owned. They go back to the bank and the bank will list them on the open market. The majority of these single family homes in particular, condos, they will end up in a first look program, which means that if you're an owner occupant moving in, you have 30 days to make an offer before investors can write offers. So that's the funnel for foreclosure and the actual bank-owned property at the end. And you can finance those with conventional mortgage financing in many cases, depending on condition. That is the smallest piece of the pie. There's other pieces of the pie as well. Let us know in the comments below where you're seeing foreclosures headed in your neck of the woods. Subscribe to our free weekly email newsletter and you are going to get all the charts from this video plus a whole lot more. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates, and we can't wait to work with you.